Josh here. This is Treksplained. What we're going to do here is talk about the premiere episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Last week I told you all that I was debating on going to the pilot of Next Generation first or going to the second pilot of the original series. I argued with myself back and forth, but I ended up choosing Kirk's first appearance. That ended up being kind of good. 2 pilots of Star Trek the original series was about 2 hours, and the 1 pilot of The Next Generation is also about 2 hours, as well as every other Star Trek premiere episodes will be. So the timing kind of worked out, you know? Anywho, we're on Next Gen this week with their premiere episode, Encounter at Farpoint. The brand shiny new Enterprise D is on its way to Farpoint Station, which, as Deanna Troi will point out, even sounds mysterious. We start off the episode with the first ever opening credits, flying by Earth, Luna, Jupiter, and Saturn to finally see our new Enterprise D, the Enterprise I grew up with. And we hear the new Captain Picard give the familiar Space, the Final Frontier prologue. The Enterprise is on its way to Deneb 4. Captain Picard is taking a little tour around the new Enterprise and finds himself on the bridge. One will notice the audio is not quite great on this, like in the episode. Likely didn't have too many microphones for the premiere episode, but it is what it is. Picard is talking to Data, the android, about solving the mystery of Farpoint Station. Picard makes a reference about snooping around, but Data doesn't know what snooping is. A humorous interchange occurs in which Picard defines it for Data. Deanna Troi, the half-Betazoid empath, detects a powerful mind when a type of galactic force field gets put up in front of them. The Enterprise raises defenses and comes to a halt in front of the force field. Then, a being dressed up as an old Spanish sea captain materializes on the bridge in a flash of light. This being orders Picard to return to their own solar system immediately. Picard calmly begins engaging this person, and he identifies himself as Q. That is both a race and an individual. The helmsman, Lieutenant Torres, makes a move with his phaser, but Q freezes him and basically tells Picard he doesn't trust humans. Now go back, or die. Q changes into an army uniform in another flash of light and tells Picard to return it another way. The act of American patriotism. He calls humans a dangerously savage child race, which Picard denies. He then transforms into another outfit, which we are led to believe is in the near future, or of present-day Earth, where the military controls their soldiers with drugs. The security chief, Lieutenant Yar, wants to remove Q, but Picard shuts her down. A dialogue is exchanged in which Picard says Q is judging, in which Q thinks is a wonderful idea and leaves to prepare. Oh shit, what did he do? Picard decides to see what his new Galaxy-class starship can do. Maximum acceleration to escape, and then saucer separation. He consults Data, who says it's possible, but there is no margin for error. The Q force field turns into a kind of flaming ball and gives chase, easily, and begins overtaking them. Picard arms photons and tells everyone to prepare for saucer separation. The Klingon Worf will command the saucer. Worf protests against letting his captain go into battle without him, but yields at the captain's orders. Klingons like structure. The rest of the bridge officers head to the battle bridge. Hey, why did that one guy have a skirt on? Fascinating. I honestly wonder, could they not find pants? The battle bridge officers are Captain Picard, Lieutenant Commander Deanna Troi, Lieutenant Tasha Yar, Lieutenant Commander Data, and an Irish guy, who we'll eventually come to know as Chief Miles O'Brien. Tasha fires the torpedoes. The goal is not to damage, but simply to blind the flaming ball following them. She actually fires a lot of them. Overkill much, Tasha? And then one of the coolest scenes in Next Gen happens. The separation of the saucer section. They only do this 3 times in the whole series, and then once in the first Next Gen movie. But here is the first. The saucer section is removed from the drive section, and they essentially have 2 starships now. The goal is to put non-critical crew and civilians out of harm's way. The saucer section will continue with them, and the drive section will return to confront the Q. The separation is successful, and the saucer section heads away. Try saying saucer section 5 times fast. The drive section makes a sharp U-turn and heads back. The torpedoes detonate finally, and they stop, waiting for the enemy. They didn't need to wait long. Here it comes. Tell them we surrender. The flaming ball turns into the force field again, but this time it surrounds the Enterprise in a sphere of force field. Soon, Picard and the bridge officers find themselves in a kind of courtroom. Not one we would know, but one with spectators cheering and booing. Someone, I guess the bailiff, orders all the prisoners to stand. So Picard sits down. Data identifies the courtroom from the mid-21st century, the post-atomic horror. Q comes out on a raised platform and a spotlight on him in the judge robes. Actually rather menacing. A guard demands them stand on their feet, but they don't. Then Tasha Yar kicks his ass and knocks him down. The guard gets high with a little device, and then another guard kills him because he's out of order. All while the crowd cheers and laughs. Picard asks if this will be a fair trial, and Q says yes, absolutely equitable. So they prepare to hear what Q has to say. The court begins. The charges, multiple and grievous savageries of the species. Data objects, but is overruled. Tasha yells at Q and is frozen. Deanna says, "You barbarian!" Picard challenges Q because Q broke his own rules about prisoners not being harmed. Q agrees and thaws Tasha out. Picard yells at Q a bit about being fair, and then Q says he will answer to the charge of being a grievously savage race. Picard says to list specific charges. One of the, presenters gives Picard a tablet of charges, which Picard just stares at. Then he says he sees no charges against us. Q claims he's out of order and has two guards point guns at Troy and Data's heads. Then he demands Picard answer guilty, or else he'll shoot his crew. Q demands a plea, and Picard says guilty in order to save his crew, but then says provisionally. Picard has Data restate Q's statement that the trial would be fair. He does so in Q's own voice. Q doesn't take the bait, and so Picard says to test them about how humans are now. Q is intrigued by this and agrees. Their immediate destination at Farpoint will be their challenge. Let's see how they handle it. Court is adjourned. They find themselves back on the battle bridge, and Chief O'Brien has no idea they were gone. They're simply on course for Farpoint. Guess Q can control time. We cut over to a voiceover at Farpoint Station by Commander William Riker. He's waiting for the Enterprise and taking a look around. He's going to be the first officer for the new ship. He has a meeting with Groppler Zorn, the administrator of Farpoint Station. Riker is amazed at how well put together Farpoint is, and Zorn offers him an Earth delicacy while passing him a tray of fruit. Riker wants an apple, but it isn't there. Suddenly, a second tray is noticed with nothing but apples. So weird. I could have sworn it wasn't there a second ago. Their meeting ends, and Riker leaves. Zorn yells, not to do that again. They'll punish you if you do things like that again. Looks like he was yelling at himself, but whatever. To each their own, right? Riker meets up with Dr. Beverly Crusher in the marketplace. She's with her son, Wesley, who's about 15 or so. Crusher seems a little cold to Riker, but Wesley makes excuses for her, so she tells him to shut up. Not really, but basically. Also, it's a running theme throughout the series where people tell Wesley to shut up in various ways. Riker wants to investigate the weird happenings at Farpoint. Crusher is pondering about some cloth and wished it was gold. She talks to Riker for a second, and then she turns back. There is gold cloth. She says she'll take the whole bolt of cloth, and then they head down to Parts Unknown. Parts Unknown is down an open hallway. They continue talking about happenings and about the Enterprise and Captain Picard. Wesley speaks up, stating the obvious that the gold cloth wasn't there before. Riker realizes that the Crushers know Jean-Luc Picard, and it's explained that Picard brought home the body of Jack Crusher, Wesley's dad, when he got killed on the mission. The Crushers leave, and Lieutenant Geordi LaForge comes up to report to Commander Riker. The Enterprise is arriving, but without the Sox section. Geordi LaForge is going to be a helmsman initially, and then will eventually become the chief engineer in Season 2. He's blind and wears a visor in order to be able to see. One of these days, I'll get around to making a video on the visor technology. Anywho, Captain Picard wants Commander Riker to beam up immediately. Riker thanks LaForge and beams up to the Enterprise. Tasha Yar is in the transporter room and greets Commander Riker. She escorts Riker to the battle bridge. Riker asks about the saucer section, but Tasha says it's better for the captain to explain. Picard says for Riker to go watch the training video, and they'll talk later. Riker is shown the encounter they had with Q, at least as much as was reported. The court didn't allow cameras. No pictures. That's kind of typical of most courts. Once Riker finishes the video training, he goes and sees Picard. They're on probation from Q. A call from the bridge comes through, and the saucer section has arrived. Picard orders Riker to reassemble the Enterprise manually. Picard smirks as Riker leaves. This is a test. The bridge crew is doubtful, but Riker is able to pull it off. The Enterprise has been made into one ship again. It was a bit rough, but totally worked. Picard meets Riker later on in a conference room. He challenges him on the chain of command and whatnot, and Picard accepts it, but asks him to help him not to make an ass out of himself around kids. The ship has families, but he doesn't like children. In sickbay, Crusher and LaForge are doing a checkup with him and his visor. The visor gives him headaches, but there's not much they can do about it without affecting how it works. Riker finally makes it onto the proper bridge and asks Worf where Data is. He's on a special assignment to transfer an admiral to the USS Hood. Why not beam? Well, the admiral is a remarkable man. Now here's a really cool throwback. We see Data walking with an old man to the shuttle bay. At first, it may be hard to tell who he is, but we soon come to realize that it's Leonard McCoy, a very old, age 137, Leonard McCoy, also known as Bones, the old doctor from the original Enterprise who served under Captain Kirk. Him and Data discuss his age and about Vulcans a little bit, but then he tells Data one of my favorite Star Trek quotes of all time. It tears me up when I hear him say it.
Well, it's a new ship, but she's got the right name. Now, you remember that, you hear? You treat her like a lady, and she'll always bring you home.
This type of cameo becomes a standard of every Star Trek until Discovery. Someone from a previous series will show up to send off the new crew. Here is Admiral Leonard Bones McCoy. By the way, I am aware I haven't posted anything about Discovery. I only saw the first episode because it was broadcast. I haven't gotten the urge to buy into the CBS app just for Discovery, but I probably will once Picard comes out. And then I can start reviewing Discovery. Also, Picard looks fire, guys. Worf reacts in typical Klingon fashion and pulls out his phaser. Picard stops him from firing because that would just blast a hole in the viewer. Q tells Picard they have 24 hours. And then Picard says, if we're going to be damned, let's be damned for what we really are. 11 hours later, Picard and Riker are talking about the Farpoint station, how the geothermal energy allowed the Bandy race to construct it so perfectly. Picard and Riker leave to go talk to Groppler Zorn. Counselor Troy is coming along. Seems like Riker and her have met. They can even communicate telepathically. I don't think we find out in this episode, but they used to date. She calls him Imzadi, which is the Betazoid word for beloved. In the administrator's office, Groppler Zorn objects to having a telepath, but Troy clarifies that she's only half Betazoid. She can only sense feelings. She's empathic, not telepathic. Starfleet wants them to construct other bases, but Zorn doesn't want to. They're not interested in trading for the secrets either. If Starfleet can't accept it, then the Bandy can go into business with the Ferengi. Troy begins and describes feeling pain and loneliness and despair. It's something close, but not the Bandy. Zorn says he doesn't know what it is. He gets defensive. The crew leaves, and again, Zorn threatens to go to the Ferengi. Picard says simply that he hopes they find him tasty, implying that the Ferengi eat other sentient races. We don't know this now, but we find out later that they mostly are bug and worm eaters. Riker asks an ensign where Data is, and she shows him how to use the wall panels to find him. Also, she checks out Riker a bit. Sup, boy? Hey. Riker goes to the holodeck to find Data. The holodeck door opens to a nature scene, complete with a little stream. He finds Data trying to whistle, but just not getting it. Riker wants Data to come down to the planet with him to investigate. They converse, and Data says he would give up all his abilities to be human. Riker calls him Pinocchio. They head back towards the entrance, but explain the holodeck and how it functions a little bit. Wesley Crusher comes in and falls in the stream. Data rescues him, one-handed, while Wesley says, "Wow." Wesley goes to talk to his mom about all the features of the ship, but really wants to go see the bridge. Dr. Crusher says no, it's against the captain's orders. He finally convinces her because he says he'll stay in the turbolift. On the surface, Riker, Tasha, Data, Troy, and Geordi discuss where they're going to investigate. Tasha, Troy, and Geordi are going to go to some old tunnels underground, while Data and Riker explore the top. Riker is avoiding teaming up with Troy. While Data and Riker talk about how ordinary everything appears, Tasha calls them through their communicators. They found some really weird tunnels that don't match anything else in the records. Troy opens up her mind and again feels the deep pain from before. Riker and Data beam directly to the other team. They can't narrow it down to who is projecting this pain. They keep trying to figure out the tunnels, but aren't getting anywhere. It's like nothing they've seen before. Wesley and Dr. Crusher come to the bridge. Picard yells at Wesley that he's not allowed on the bridge, but seeing Dr. Crusher softens him a bit. Picard reluctantly allows Wesley on the bridge. We get a camera view that is supposed to be Wesley's point of view, and everyone is looking at him like, who the fuck is this kid? Picard allows him to sit in his command chair, but Wesley sees a perimeter alert on Picard's little arm panels and gets kicked off the bridge. A vessel is approaching the planet. They cannot identify the configuration of the vessel, but it looks like a flying saucer. Defenses are initiated, and they call Zorn to see if he knows who it was. Was it the Ferengi? No, that was just an idle threat. We had no dealings with them. Whatever it is, it's 12 times the volume of the Enterprise. The Enterprise is not small. It scans the Enterprise, but does not otherwise act harmfully against it. In the tunnels, they're still trying to feel things out. They head back up to the surface. On the Enterprise, they can't figure out the vessel. They try to hail, but there's nothing. Sensors just bounce off. Suddenly it starts firing at the old Bandy City near Farpoint. Thankfully, it's abandoned. As Riker and the team head up, they realize it's being fired upon. Data and Riker continue up but tell the others to beam back to the ship. Zorn tries to call for help from the Enterprise, but Picard ignores him. He tries calling Riker, and Riker reports on the damage being done to the old city. Picard orders Riker to kidnap Zorn. He tells Tasha to lock phasers onto the lifeform, and then Q appears scolding them. Some back and forth on morals and interference happen between Q and Picard when the vessel begins firing again. Picard is going to try blocking the shots with the Enterprise, but the Khan is not responding. Riker and Data get hit with some rubble, but not enough to cause permanent damage. They find Zorn sobbing on the ground. Zorn is eventually disappeared in a scream somehow, like a painful transporter breath. Riker reports it to Picard. Troy reports satisfaction. The transporter room reports Riker and Data have returned. Q asks Riker to beam over to the other vessel. If he does, Q will leave. Riker wants to do it. Picard leaves the bridge to go to talk to Dr. Crusher, because that seems like the right thing to do in the middle of a battle. He apologizes for not greeting her when she came on board, and also says if she wants a transfer because of his association with bringing her dead husband home, he would grant it. She refuses. She actually requested the Enterprise. Well then, I guess we're done here. Riker beams over to the vessel with Troy, Tasha, and Data. It has the same patterns and materials as the tunnels. Troy senses anger and hate at the Bandy. The vessel has no crew, no circuitry, no power, but they discover Zorn trapped in a kind of painful stasis. Riker and Data zap the stasis field, and Zorn drops to the ground. The vessel isn't too happy. The transporter can't beam them back. Picard pleads with Q to get them back. He says he'll do whatever Q says, and suddenly the crew and Zorn are back. But it wasn't Q, so the deal is null and void. The vessel beamed them back. And it's not a vessel. It's an entity. It's alive. It's revealed that Farpoint is another entity. the Enterprise uses the phaser banks to feed the injured being on the surface. The space entity converts itself into a kind of giant jellyfish-looking thing. Defenses are down, I guess. They realize it's just an entity trying to rescue its mate. They feed the surface entity with the phasers, and it's able to return to space. Q says it was all a lucky guess. Zorn tries to defend himself, but is scoffed at by Picard. The two beings greet each other warmly and leave for parts unknown. Troy reports joy and gratitude. Aww. Picard tells Q they passed the test, and Q leaves, but does not promise never to appear again. Dun dun dun. They see what's out there and engage on their next mission. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked today's story, please drop a like and subscribe so you get updates on new ones. See you next time on Treksplained.